Yeah, hi. We had talked about the various principles of questionnaire design and the kind of scales we should be using. And then, if you remember, I had asked you all whether you want to learn the scales that are talked about in the market research textbooks. Some of you have got back to me saying that you would like that quickly covered. So, it's not that we don't use this in practice. We do use it in practice as well. But we don't call it by these names. So we call it verbal disposition scales. We just call it agreed disability scales. But we'll show you the scales now. And you will see that it's not very different from what we have talked about in the earlier slides, right? So we will talk about basically three scales from theory. Likert scale, semantic differential scale, something called Stapel scale. And, it's perhaps useful to remember that children, it's not just children, maybe it is less educated people, right? And sometimes we do research even amongst illiterate people. So your complicated scales may not work with those kind of people. So you may need simpler scales for them. We'll just see one brief example of that, right? So I'm just going down one slide here. And well, I'll start with Likert scale. So let's say the question is about people's opinion about a brand of jeans called the ABC jeans, right? So the way Likert scales works will be you'll give some statements. ABC jeans are good looking. ABC jeans are reasonably priced. My next pair of jeans will be ABC jeans. ABC jeans are easy to identify on someone. And you will ask them to what extent they agree or disagree with that scale. Okay. Now, one important thing to remember is this is what the textbooks talk about. But practicing market research have discovered that you should never just say strongly disagree and disagree. It's important to say somewhat disagree. Okay. You won't find this in too many textbooks, but nonetheless, it's necessary. So we've already seen an agree disagree scale. We already saw a situation where you have many statements and you agree disagree scale. So Likert is not very different. So which is why I said we do use these scales in practice, but we don't necessarily use it with the same terminology. We all know what we're talking about, but here we don't use the same terms. That's all. Is this bit clear? We'll go on to the next one, which is semantic differential scale. Here, what happens is that again we want opinion about, maybe a restaurant, for example, ABC restaurant, for example. We want people's opinion. And here what we do is we take two extreme points of view. And we ask the consumer, which is your opinion about that restaurant? Is it here or is it here? So the person completely says it is high prices, they can circle here. If the person completely believes it is low prices, he can do here. Or he can give anywhere between this. Right? Likewise for, is this location inconvenient or is it convenient? Is it for people like me or is it not for me? Does it have a warm atmosphere, a welcoming atmosphere or a cold atmosphere? Right? And the person chooses a number here. Now, our scales are not very different from this either when we give marks out of 10 scale and so on and so forth, right? Please note that the same questions we can ask, we can get similar, equally reliable results by instead saying, this restaurant has high prices. Right? And you can ask him, do you agree or disagree? And you can make it a 5 point, strongly disagree to strongly disagree. In which case it becomes a Likert scale. It's just a matter of which scale the researcher uses. Now, between these two, which will you use? We already discussed it. The researcher will use the scale that they're more familiar with, they're more used to. Right? So you choose a number here. If 4 means you're effectively neutral. Right? So you can even, if you want, you can give a name to this, neutral. Right? You can do this at 5 points, you can do this at 7 points, you can do this at 9 points, but generally speaking, textbooks talk about 7 points. right? This is 7 points, right? What is it? Is clear? Okay, now a slight variation of the semantic differential scale is called the Stapel scale. Not staple, Stapel. Right? We'll see that next. Here too, we're talking about just one quality. That was a restaurant. Here we're talking about a bank. And we're saying, say, courtesy, for example. Now, if you believe that the bank is courteous, you can give a positive side score. If you believe the bank is not courteous, you can give a negative side score. And the strength of the opinion can be +1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Or -1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Likewise for friendly, likewise for prompt service, likewise for efficient. Okay? So this is like a semantic differential, except that you don't have this and this. You just have, one word. So to relate it back to what we say, we will just call this a numerical rating scale. We will say, how many marks do you give to your bank on politeness or courtesy, right? And we'll say, please give marks from 0 to 10. Where 0 means it is not at all courteous, and 10 means it is very courteous. It's conceptually, we are measuring the same thing, we are measuring it in a slightly different way of wording. Now, which is better? In your opinions, you want to be a little louder.
Likert.
There is no better or worse. Remember that. Okay? And I'll come back to this point after just quickly talking about, this is clear, Stapel scale. Is semantic differential clear?
Yes.
It's like it's clear. Right. Let's just take a very, very, very brief look at scales for children. Typically, or illiterate people. Oh, so sorry. Or for illiterate people, or less educated people, etc. Fewer points, your 7 point, 9 point, 10 point may confuse them. It's enough to have 3 or at most 5. More images, you can have, happy. Here's the same thing for like. Or you can have an angry face. Right? Etc. etc. More images. Children's research, as I said earlier, has other considerations about ethics and so on and so forth. So we'll come back to that. But essentially, and when you say children, we're not talking about 12 or 14-year-old kids. I mean, those kids can read and answer the scale. We're talking about small kids, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old. And also research, the mother is normally nearby. So the mother will also communicate with the child, saying, what do you say? Do you like it? You tell the uncle what you like. There is some interaction there. Right? Between this slide, or rather after this slide, can you give me a blank slide? So I just want to reiterate which is better, which is not better. There's nothing like that. How do we choose which scale? Easy on the respondent. Right? Easy to answer genuinely. Preferable with the midpoint. Preferable. Balanced. What is balanced? Can you repeat?
You have equal positives and negatives.
Equal number of positive and negative points. Okay? Must a scale with which we have experience in the past. Is my handling legible? A scale with which we have experience in the past, so that if, for example, %, say, very satisfied on a 5-point scale, we can compare with the past. Is it good or is it bad? Is it more than what we have seen or is it less than what we have seen? Right? Otherwise we'll be guessing. Are people being too polite? Is the scale, encouraging them to be too polite or not polite, and so on and so forth. So these are 4 considerations. The scale should be easy to the respondent, meaning he should be able to answer, should be able to understand and be able to answer. Preferably with a midpoint. Because you're not biasing them towards positive or negative. Preferably balanced, equal number of positive and negative. Again, that way you're not biasing them towards positive and negative. And the must is that you must have past experience with the scale because you should know how it is read. So when you say you must have past experience, if somebody else can give it the benefit of the past experience, that's also okay, right? Essentially, you should be able to know whether this particular weighing machine tends to say minus 0.5 kilo or plus 0.5 kilo or tends to be 100% accurate and so on and so forth. Are we clear? Can we close this questionnaire design chapter here? Okay, right. Thank you.